At 94 years old, Barbara Eden still shows up on Instagram in bunny ears, still laughs on red carpets, and still gets asked the same question she's been asked for 60 years. How does she do it? But before she was the woman fans call ageless, before the magic bottle and the pink harem pants that made television history, she was just a girl from a broken home in San Francisco who sang for $10 a night because her family needed the money. Her story is not the story of a woman who had it easy and stayed pretty. It's the story of a woman who worked, who lost people she loved, and who kept getting up anyway. That's the real magic. Let's talk about who Barbara Eden actually is. She was born Barbara Jean Moorhead on August 23, 1931, in Tucson, Arizona, right in the middle of the Great Depression. Her parents, Alice and Harold, split up when she was still small, and her mother packed up and moved them to San Francisco looking for a fresh start. Life in San Francisco wasn't glamorous. Alice remarried, Barbara gained a half-sister, and money stayed tight for years. What the family didn't have in cash, they made up for in music. Her mother sang around the house, and that sound became the first thing that ever made young Barbara want to perform. By her teenage years, singing had stopped being just a comfort and started being a job. She sang in church choirs, then worked her way into local dance bands, picking up gigs in nightclubs for a modest nightly fee. It wasn't showbiz glamour. It was a teenager learning how to hold a room, how to read an audience, how to recover when a note didn't land right. At 16, she made a decision that told you everything about how serious she was. She joined the Actors Equity Association, the union for stage performers. She studied theater, trained her voice at a respected conservatory, and finished high school while already building the beginnings of a career most of her classmates hadn't even considered. In 1951, almost as an afterthought, she entered a beauty pageant and won a regional title. It didn't launch her into stardom overnight, but it did something more useful. It put her in front of people who could open doors. Television was brand new and hungry for fresh faces, and by the mid-1950s Barbara was appearing in variety programs and landing small guest spots on some of the biggest shows on the air, including a memorable brush with Lucille Ball. She wasn't the star of those episodes. She was the young actress in the background, soaking up everything she could from performers who had already figured out what she was still learning. Her first real break as a series regular came in 1957, when she was cast in the television version of How to Marry a Millionaire, playing one of 3 young women chasing wealthy husbands in New York City. The show didn't run long, but it taught her the brutal discipline of a weekly sitcom schedule. New scripts, new jokes, new timing, every single week, with no room to coast. She carried that discipline into film work a few years later, taking on a serious dramatic role opposite Elvis Presley in the western Flaming Star, and then jumping into science fiction with Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. In just a few years, she had proven she could do comedy, drama, and adventure. Hollywood took notice, but it still wasn't hers yet. Then came 1965, and the role that would define her forever. I Dream of Jeannie put Barbara Eden inside a bottle as a 2,000-year-old genie who falls into the life of an American astronaut. The premise sounds simple now, but at the time it was a gamble. A fantasy sitcom built almost entirely around the chemistry between 2 lead actors. Barbara found the characters' balance instantly. Mischievous but devoted, powerful but oddly vulnerable, funny in a way that felt effortless. Her co-star, Larry Hagman, played the exasperated astronaut Tony Nelson, and their back and forth became the engine of the whole show. It ran for 5 seasons, turned Barbara into a household name, and never really left the air. Reruns kept introducing her to new generations for decades afterward. Working alongside Larry Hagman wasn't always easy. Hagman was talented, unpredictable, and by his own later admission, struggling with issues that would eventually cost him his health. Barbara has spoken about him over the years with real affection and honesty in equal measure, acknowledging that he could be difficult on set, while also crediting the strange electricity between them for making the show work as well as it did. Decades later, the two reunited more than once, including a stage production of Love Letters and a run of guest appearances on Dallas, and audiences who remembered them from the 60s showed up in force both times. Hagman passed away in 2012 after years of health struggles, and Barbara has spoken warmly about him ever since, treating their partnership as one of the defining creative relationships of her life. I Dream of Jeannie also became an unlikely piece of television trivia because of a costume choice that turned into a genuine cultural moment. The character's navel was never shown on screen. Whether that came from network standards of the era or simply the design of Jeannie's outfit has been debated for decades, and Barbara herself has laughed the whole thing off more than once, calling it far more dramatic than it ever needed to be. It's a small detail, but it says something about how closely audiences watched her. Every choice, every costume seam, became part of the conversation. After Jeannie ended in 1970, a lot of actors in her position would have struggled to be seen as anything else. Barbara didn't let that happen. She kept working steadily through the 70s and 80s, taking on the lead role in Harper Valley PDA, first as a film and then as a television series built around a widowed mother taking on small-town hypocrisy. It gave her a chance to play someone grounded and sharp-tongued instead of magical, and it proved she could anchor a show without a Jeannie costume. She also returned to the stage, touring in a production of The Sound of Music, and later performing the two-hander play Love Letters, a piece built entirely around two people reading a lifetime of correspondence aloud. Fans who came to see the play for nostalgia's sake left talking about how much genuine emotional range she brought to it. Television kept finding reasons to bring her back. She guest starred on Sabrina the Teenage Witch in the early 2000s, playing a great aunt with her own touch of magic, a role that let her wink at her own history without repeating it. Through all of this, she never stopped showing up for interviews, conventions, and fan events, treating her audience less like a market to sell to and more like people she genuinely enjoyed spending time with. Behind the scenes, Barbara's life carried far more weight than her light-hearted television image ever suggested. She married actor Michael Ansara in 1958, and after years of trying to start a family, their son Matthew was born in 1965, the same year I Dream of Jeannie premiered. She has described him as the thing she wanted most in the world finally arriving, but her family also endured devastating loss. In 1971, nearly 8 months into another pregnancy, she lost the baby. At a time when very few public figures spoke openly about miscarriage, stillbirth, or the depression that can follow it, Barbara mostly grieved in private, the way most women of that era were expected to. Her marriage to Ansara ended in 1974, worn down by the strain of 2 demanding careers and the emotional toll of everything the family had been through. She married Charles Figert, a newspaper executive, in 1977, but that marriage also ended in 1982. It wasn't until 1991, when she met real estate developer John Eichholz, that she found the steady, lasting partnership she'd been looking for. They're still married today, and Eichholz appears often in the photos she shares with fans. The two of them, decades into their life together, still clearly comfortable and happy in each other's company. The hardest chapter of Barbara's life came through her son. Matthew struggled with substance addiction for much of his adult life, a battle that began in his teenage years and never fully let go despite treatment and support from his family. In 2001, at the age of 35, Matthew died of a drug overdose. Barbara has spoken about that loss with remarkable candor in the years since, refusing to hide behind the polished image of a beloved TV star. She has said plainly that she blamed herself, that she searched for anything she could have done differently, and that the grief never fully goes away. You simply learn to carry it. Rather than retreat from public life, she chose to speak openly about addiction, hoping that her visibility could help other families going through the same nightmare, especially parents who felt too ashamed to talk about it. That willingness to turn personal pain into public purpose became a through line in her later life. She's lent her name and time to causes including children's charities, cancer research initiatives, and organizations supporting families affected by addiction and abuse. In 2011, she published a memoir, Jeannie Out of the Bottle, which walked readers through her career highlights alongside the parts of her life that never made the tabloids: the miscarriage, her son's addiction and death, the end of 2 marriages, and the slow process of rebuilding a sense of stability. Critics and fans alike noted how unguarded the book felt, written less like a celebrity's carefully managed memoir and more like a long, honest conversation. Hollywood has recognized her staying power in its own formal ways too. She received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1988, and she's picked up honorary academic recognition for her decades of work in entertainment and philanthropy. But ask Barbara Eden herself what she's proudest of, and it's unlikely to be a plaque or a ceremony. It's more likely to be the fact that, at 94, she's still getting invited to conventions where fans line up for hours just to tell her what I Dream of Jeannie meant to them growing up. It's the fact that she still posts photos with her husband on holidays, still jokes about her skincare routine, and still answers questions about a role she played 60 years ago with the same warmth as if it happened last season. People love to reduce Barbara Eden to a single image, the genie in the pink outfit, forever young, forever smiling, forever a punchline about a hidden belly button. But the real Barbara Eden is a woman who clawed her way out of a Depression-era childhood through sheer discipline, who built a career across singing, film, television, and stage, and who survived personal losses that would break most people. She kept working. She kept showing up. And at an age when most of her peers from that era are gone, she's still out there, still laughing, still telling her story on her own terms. That's the real reason people can't look away from Barbara Eden, even now. It was never really about the costume or the genie bottle. It was about a woman who turned every hard year of her life into fuel, who never let grief have the final word, and who is still, at 94, exactly who she's always been. Someone who refuses to fade quietly into the background. Hollywood has seen a lot of stars rise and disappear. Barbara Eden simply never stopped.